What's going on, guys? Welcome back. And today I'm going to be bringing you my review of The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 2, or The Mandalorian Chapter 10, The Passenger. And I will try and do a video every week for each Mandalorian episode. I'm sorry I didn't upload this video earlier because it is Saturday as I am filming this. I apologize I didn't get this video out to you guys earlier. I haven't been able to watch these episodes until the evening on Friday because that's the only time all my family is free and we can actually sit down and watch it. But I didn't make a set for this one because I didn't really feel the motivation to build a set, so I just have a screenshot of this Lego Mandalorian poster, which is pretty cool. But anyway, we'll get into the episode now, and without spoiling it, I guess for those of you who maybe have not gotten a chance to see it yet, I thought this was an okay episode. You guys know my opinions on the first season and this season thus far. I still think this is better than the middle 3 filler episodes in Season 1, Episodes 4, 5, and 6. I think it's still better than that, but it's easily below the 5 actual plot-based episodes in Season 1, and it's definitely below the episode before it in this season, the Marshal, or Chapter 9, the Marshal, because that one actually had some intrigue behind it. It had some okay themes, it had some cool action in there, and it did have the whole mystery and intrigue behind the Boba Fett thing going on there, so that was cool. But this episode didn't have any of that to offer for me. I guess getting into spoilers now. It starts off right where the last one ended. Mandalorian speeding through the desert on the speeder bike, or speeding across Tatooine. Some guys set up a tripwire for him, and the speeder bike gets blown up. And one of the guys escapes his clutches and puts a knife to Baby Yoda's throat, but he takes the guy out with his jetpack, which was a cool trick. That was pretty funny. And then he goes off back to Amy Sedaris, and she sends this fish lady with him because she has to get her eggs to her husband or something because it's the last of her family line, and Baby Yoda's eating the eggs, which is kind of dark humor, but at the same time, I didn't really mind that. I thought the comedic writing in this episode was on point, and this episode was actually directed by Peyton Reed, who directed Ant-Man 1 and 2, or Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp. And I usually like his comedic writing, so I thought he did a good job in terms of the writing in this episode. I don't remember if he wrote it, he just directed it, but the way he directs comedy, I think actually works for me. And I thought the humor in this episode was a lot stronger than a lot of the humor in the show, especially pertaining to Baby Yoda. But basically, they get pulled over by X-Wings, basically is what happens, and one of the pilots is the same pilot from Season 1, played by Dave Filoni, and they crash land on this ice planet, and some antics ensue, and eventually they get off the planet and on their way to this other Outer Rim planet where the Mandalorians can be found. And there's some ice spiders and stuff, and the ice spiders were actually, I believe, in Star Wars Rebels, the show that I don't like personally, but it was cool to see them in live action. I think they did a good job transferring those from animation to live action. I think they looked pretty good, and it was a pretty creepy little scene where all the spiders are chasing them. And I will say, before I talk about the positives, I want to get my negatives out of the way because I do have some pretty major gripes with this episode. The plot it's one of those, side story plots that I don't really love. And like I said, there were some things in it that I like. I think the humor was on point, and there's definitely some intrigue. Like, you get to see the X-Wing pilots, and the beginning of the formation of the New Republic and the Resistance. I think that's cool. But I really thought the plot was pretty weak. They set up some kind of intrigue, by having it being called The Passenger. Before I watched it, I thought it would have, I thought Boba Fett would be the passenger, because the description is he must transfer a passenger with very valuable goods, but it just ends up being this fish lady, and they kind of try to make you think it's going to be Boba, but it isn't. And I mean, I have to kind of tell myself, hey, you set false expectations for yourself on what this passenger or who this passenger was going to be. So I can't really bash the episode for that, although I think a lot of people can agree they did try to lead us on to believe that it was Boba Fett. But I mean, when they showed the recap at the beginning of the last episode and they did not show Boba in the recap, I was like, he's probably not going to be in this, and he probably won't show up until way later in the season now that I think about it. So I just thought the plot was kind of meandering because the first episode, he's looking for, or Din Djarin is looking for a Mandalorian to show him on his path to get Baby Yoda back to his people. Okay, that's cool. Then it turns out it's not actually a Mandalorian at all. It's just a guy wearing Boba's armor, and you have a little side story, but I actually thought that was a pretty decent little side plot. And now, once again, we have someone else who may also know where the Mandalorians are, or a person who knows her husband, or someone who knows where the Mandalorians are, and it's just like, you could have cut all of this. This episode did not need to happen. You could have cut this and just had, okay, he's got this person with valuable goods. Okay, and then we go straight to the Mandalorian planet. We didn't need any of this. This does, out of all the episodes so far, scream the filler to me. And last night when I watched it, I had more of a positive outlook on it, but the more and more I think about it, the more aspects I dislike about this episode. That doesn't mean I dislike the episode as a whole. Like I said, I still think it's better than the middle 3 episodes of Season 1, but I still think it's one of the weaker episodes of the show, all things considered. And yeah, like, I really did not like the weird side story aspect to it, and just the general plot they chose is not the most interesting side plot. Like, I thought in the first episode of this season, the side plot, or just meandering little story they chose, was better. It was more interesting, and you had that Boba Fett mystery going on that added to it. But here, we don't have any of that. We've just got Lady with eggs, and Baby Yoda's eating the eggs, and I found all of the characters in this episode to be really annoying. I really did not like how, I understand that Peyton Reed had not directed any episodes of this show before, but I thought Din Djarin was surprisingly unlikable in this episode because they kind of assassinate his character in a way, because of the scene where they land on this planet and Din Djarin's talking about how, it gets really dark after, or it gets really cold after nightfall, and then he just decides to have a freaking nap, and then the woman reprograms the droid from episode 6 of season 1, and then tells him, I thought it was part of your code, the Mandalorian code, that you're supposed to keep your word. And he's like, fine, okay, whatever. She basically guilt trips him. But he deserves it, because he is supposed to stick to his word. It is part of the Mandalorian code, and we've seen how nice this guy is. Din Djarin, or the Mandalorian himself, is a good guy. He's a good character, he's a good person, and he tried to save the life of that rebel captain in the first season in episode 6, which is ultimately why the X-Wing pilots actually spare him from getting arrested at the end of this episode. So his kind actions toward others often benefit him, and that's something that, like, the Mandalorian, Din Djarin as a character, is not the most interesting, but the thing that makes him interesting is what the guy said in the first season. He said, how unusual for one of your reputation to really care about this child. And you can tell that he really cares about the baby, and he cares about people, and he tries to do the right thing most of the time. So that's why I just find it really stupid that he would say deals off to this woman who he's agreed to help, because it's also benefiting him, because he's trying to get to his Mandalorian people or find more Mandalorians. So it's benefiting him, not just her. So I find it ridiculous that he just sit there in the snow and cold and just basically say, hey, let's freeze to death. But at the same time, the woman is also being, or the frog lady is also being really stupid, because she's like, you have to get me to this place, and then basically just decides to sit in a hot spring with her babies, and I guess, she had to keep she's cold-blooded, and her babies, I guess, are cold-blooded, and they had to, she had to, like, maybe fertilize the eggs or whatever, or do something to keep them, like, warm enough or something. So I guess that she had a fair enough excuse, but I find it weird that she just immediately go off, because like Din Djarin said, she's in a place where he cannot protect her. So that was dumb. And also Baby Yoda, if that was really stupid, they really doubled down on Baby Yoda in this episode, because he did not get a main focus in the first episode, so they really gave you a lot more screen time for him, although I found him a little annoying in this episode as well, because in the first season, he was always helpful. He was always using the Force when he needed to, like, obviously when he had enough energy to, because it really tires him out when he uses the Force. But he could have used the Force multiple times in this episode, and rather he just gets them in trouble by setting loose these ice spiders, pissing off these ice spiders, and then having them almost get killed. And it's just, like, he didn't do anything to help. All the characters in this episode felt like they were kind of acting dumb for the sake of the plot, and that kind of annoyed me. Although, once again, I did like that Din's actions in the first season, in episode 6, did ultimately lead to these X-Wing pilots sparing him from getting arrested, and possibly sparing him his life as well. So I thought that was cool. I thought it was cool that his actions do actually have consequences, and they do have reoccurring, well, once again, consequences. And I did like when the X-Wing pilots flew away. Not a lot of people might pick up on this, but they do play March of the Resistance from The Force Awakens by John Williams. The dun 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 dun. I thought that was really cool. It was nice to hear that again, and you're kind of seeing, once again, the formation of the New Republic and the Resistance, so you get a nice little sprinkling in of that theme, which I thought was really cool as they fly off, even though I thought it was kind of stupid that they just left him there. And I guess the last thing I have to complain about with this episode is, and I'm sorry if I'm coming across overly negative, but there are aspects that I liked in this episode. Once again, I thought the humor was good, and I thought the visuals were really good. I really liked the aesthetic of the ice planet, and there was stuff that I liked, but there was just a lot of stuff that bugged me. And one of the things that bugged me was just the pacing was off. Like, we start off, we're in this, like this scene in the desert, and it's kind of suspenseful because you don't know what these guys are going to do to Din at the very beginning. And then, obviously, he takes care of them. And then he goes back to the cantina. Like, we're already back at the cantina, very fast-paced. And then we're off to the planet. We're off to the ice planet, right? We're off doing that. And then now Mandalorian or Din Djarin gets out of the ship and slowly walks around looking at the damage that's been done. And then he and Baby Yoda realize that the woman went down into the hot springs. And then they slowly walk down this path. And then Baby Yoda slowly walks over to some eggs. And then suddenly, running, shooting, fighting, spiders, running around. The pacing it felt all over the place. Like, we start off, we're going pretty quick. We're at a pretty fast pace because this is a shorter episode than the first one. It's like 10 minutes shorter than the first episode. And then we're going really slow. The episode really slows down. And then suddenly it's going like crazy fast. And the pacing just really felt off. So, I guess to wrap up my thoughts on the Mandalorian Chapter 10, The Passenger, I thought it was entertaining. You know, it was a fun time waster of like 40 minutes, but there's really not a ton to talk about besides seeing the formation of the New Republic and I guess seeing those spiders in live action, but it really didn't do a lot for me in terms of my enjoyment of the show, and I hope the plot gets started in the next episode because it's really annoying me, this continuous plot device or continuous theme of, oh, we're going to go here. Oh, he's not actually there. We have to go to this place to look for Mandalorians. Oh, they're not actually there, and I hope they don't pull that again because that's really going to annoy me. So this episode, once again, did not have to exist. they could have cut it for time and had more episodes dedicated to the actual plot. But there were some things that I enjoyed. I thought the visual quality of it was on point. I think it was even better than some of the episodes in Season 1. It might just be me personally really enjoying the aesthetic of the ice planet, but I thought that looked really cool. And I thought the comedy was pretty good as well, much better than most of the episodes in the first season. But ultimately, it doesn't really amount to anything by the end. There's nothing to really take away from this episode theme-wise. And it felt kind of hollow, which is kind of disappointing because they really built up this season as being, a really epic season, and I still think that this season does have the potential to be better than the first season, or at least have filler episodes that are better than the filler in Season 1, because I still think this is better than the filler in Season 1. I still found it more enjoyable for some reason, but I do hope that the next episode gets this plot moving and we actually get more stuff, get more characters, get more themes introduced, and we just get more stuff in the next episode in general, because this one felt really hollow to me. But that's just my opinion. Please let me know all your thoughts in the comments below on this review, and what were your thoughts on The Mandalorian Chapter 10, The Passenger. Whatever you'd like to say it all in the comments below, and of course, as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.